Hello everyone, and welcome to this video on important information about fabrics. In this video, I'm going to teach you all of the important and relevant information you need to know about specifically woven fabrics as you get ready to do your various projects. So what I have right here in front of me is just a plain basic quilting cotton fabric. It's a woven fabric. And the first thing I want to point out as I open this up is that the fabric looks different on two different sides. We have different terms for that. So first of all, this side with the print that's clearly visible, this is called the right side because it's what looks right. This side, which the print, you can still see the print on this side, but it's muted, it's not as bright. This is the wrong side of the fabric. And there are all kinds of different fabrics that have right sides and wrong sides. Some fabrics don't. So let's take a look at some different types of fabrics with the right and wrong side. So here we have three different fabrics that are all wovens as well, and they also demonstrate the right side and wrong side and a couple other elements I'm going to show you in just a moment. So let's start with this black one. So this black fabric is also a woven quilting cotton, and the right side and wrong side of this is very obvious. Now, if you want, you can use the wrong side as the right side of your project, because if you like the way this looks, great, go for it. But that was not the way this fabric was originally intended to be used. This is the right side and this is the wrong side. Very clear and easy to see. Something else with this fabric is this fabric has a print to it that is directional. So we've got all of these stripy lines going down, but if I rotate the fabric, the lines are going this way now. So that's something to keep in mind as you are cutting out your fabric pieces is, does your fabric have a pattern to it that's directional so that you can rotate your pieces as needed for the direction that you want your piece to look like? So for example, this piece, this is just a honeycomb. I mean, it kind of looks the same no matter which way I turn it. It's the same direction. I mean, there's a slight variation, but really it's not that noticeable. So the direction you turn your patterns on something like this may not matter as much as it would to this one. Let's say you're making a bag and you want all of these stripes to go up and down. You've got to make sure that your sewing pattern pieces are going this direction so that your fabric comes out the way you want. Now let's take a look at this piece. This piece very clearly has a right side and a wrong side. What I love about this one is that you can really see the weave in it and which direction those threads are going. There we go. So you can see that there are threads going this way and this way. This is how we know it's a woven fabric. But this fabric is non-directional. It doesn't really matter which way you turn it. The pattern still looks the same no matter what. So, but as you are cutting out your patterns, you do want to cut your patterns in relation to the selvage edge, to the right cut. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Right now, we're just looking at the right side, which is this side, and the wrong side, and what direction our patterns are facing. Okay? Now here's one more example. This is just a scrap piece. And if you notice, I flip the sides over. It looks the same on both sides. That's because this fabric doesn't have a right side and a wrong side. It has a direction to the pattern. There's a stripe happening here that if I were to rotate it this way, now my stripes are going a different direction. But the right side and wrong side, the way that this fabric was created, there isn't one. Which is really important. If you choose a fabric like this for your projects, you're gonna have to be very careful to make sure you pick a side, and then as you're putting your pieces together, that you put the sides together correctly, the right sides to right sides, or wrong sides to wrong sides, whichever your instructions say. Okay, so that's what right side and wrong side of fabric looks like. Now let's take a closer look at the weave and how that impacts how you cut your patterns. Okay, so let's talk about the weave. So I have right here a bolt of fabric, as you can see, full bolt. And when a fabric is rolled on a bolt like this, usually you've got one edge where the edges meet up, and the other side has a folded edge. This particular fabric has been cut and doesn't have a folded edge down there in the bolt. But on this fabric, what I love so much about this is it's really obvious to see the selvage. So you guys see this white line right here? On quilting cottons, the selvage is usually a white stripe like this that you can see where the pattern stopped being printed. Fabrics are woven on a loom, and the selvage edge is the edge that's in the loom as they are weaving it. This is the strongest edge to the fabric. So whenever you are laying down your pattern pieces, you will see, for example, on this project piece, an arrow. That tells you which direction to lay your pattern piece. This arrow is supposed to be on grain, which means it goes the same direction as the selvage, just like this. Here's our selvage edge, and my grain runs parallel to it. Now, depending on your fabric or your pattern, the pattern of your fabric, excuse me, you can rotate this, or if you need to rotate it in order to save space so that you have enough fabric to complete your project, you can. This is called putting your grain on the cross grain. So this way is cross grain, this way is selvage. You can do this. This is not the strongest way to do your pattern. So the general rule is always keep this arrow of your pattern running parallel to the selvage line, which is this right here. Okay, it's the woven edge. Your fabric is going to have two selvage edges, one on each side. Now, because this fabric has been cut, I'm going to show you the other side. We have a selvage, and this side also has a raw edge. See how this is fraying and unraveling? That's because this edge has been cut. This edge is not a selvage edge. But on the other end, we have a selvage because, first of all, you can tell it's selvage because of this white stripe, and it doesn't unravel no matter how much I pull at it. Okay? So that is selvage and grain. That's a very quick overview that you need to know when you are cutting out your patterns. So this arrow runs parallel to the selvage. Okay? Now, sometimes you may be using a scrap of fabric and you can't actually see the selvage edge. You may have a hard time finding it. So for example, this is actually a cut edge. I can tell because you can see a little nick right there where it's been cut. But this edge is my selvage. I know because I can tell all of these parts that looks like it's fraying are even. That's just where it came off the loom. And if I were to pull at these strings, they don't come out. This tells me this is the selvage edge here. So if I were to use this piece for my project, lay it out, my selvage is going this way, so I want my arrow on my pattern to be going this way. That's the direction I would need to lay my pattern to keep it on the straight of grain because it's going parallel. So now my stripes are going this way across the rectangle. But what if I want my stripes going this way? I can totally rotate it just like that. And now my stripes are going this way. My fabric's not quite as strong this way, but it is acceptable for this kind of project. All right, let's move on to learning how to make our project.